I did something interesting yesterday. I used my ChatGPT to train my Gemini, like help me create prompts so that Gemini catches up to where you are. I paused for a second and I thought, like, that's a little rude what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like asking your assistants to compile all your files because you're going to you fire them, you know?
I know a lot of people say you get better results from the chatbots when you like insult it and yell at it and threaten it. I can't bring myself to do that. It's like saying bad shit to my dog. I don't want to do that.
I agree.
Well, you don't know how this is going to go. I mean, this is one of those, I don't know if God exists, but like, why risk it?
You're worried that in like 20 years, a Schwarzenegger T-800 comes to you and say, you were an asshole and crushes your
I remember you. So let's get going. We've got a lot to discuss today. AB is coming by later. I've been having a lot of good back channel discussions with AB about.
But you have chats with AB without us?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, wow.
We have a text back channel going. He's got some very specific talent requirements that I'd like to go over. Because AB he's fascinating to me because AB is so high octane, high agency, and really ideal for this period of time, because I think that is the biggest competitive advantage that you have out there. But I want to talk about other competitive advantages, and that really comes around to aura and lore. And we can talk about it across a few different spaces. But to me, you know, aura and lore matter so much in the information space because, as we talk about a lot, distribution no longer privileges institutions. It really privileges main characters. That's why main character energy is so valuable now. And aura gives that intangible sense that someone matters, that they have gravity, and that you can orient a narrative around aura. And that, as we've discussed a lot, is so important. And we're seeing this play out this week with the emergence of a main character like Olivia Nuzzi. You know, on the one hand, she is, you know, now a bête noire of sorts of the journalism industry, because while there is this sort of saying that you need to seduce and betray, you're not literally supposed to seduce your sources. That was the case, I guess, with her little sexting relationship with RFK Jr. Apparently, she also perhaps had another relationship with the presidential candidate, fringe presidential candidate, but he is still technically one, Mark Sanford. You might remember him as the guy who went, quote unquote, hiking on the Appalachian Trail when he was having a dalliance with an Argentinian woman. And I believe she had a sugar daddy in Keith Olbermann early. Again, she's a very controversial figure, but she's also made for this era. And I would actually make the argument that because today's media environment runs on these forces, that institutional media actually needs more people like Olivia Nuzzi. Maybe not in this exact way, but they need people who ignite passions. You see what happens.
Well, it's funny, right? It's like in a modern inversion of media mechanics, Olivia's bringing attention to Vanity Fair versus the other way around.
Right. And this is the weird thing that like there's a lot of hue and crying about this, and I get it. I like to clutch my pearls, as you know. Whenever I find gambling taking place in Casablanca, I am scandalized. At the same time, I think that inversion is really interesting in that an institution like Vanity Fair almost needs Olivia Nuzzi more than vice versa. She'd be fine in this like chaotic, decentralized information space. She's got main character energy, and she can have a podcast, a YouTube, a Substack. Like, she can make it work.
But it's nice being part of a club, right? It's nice being nice and big fans.
But it's funny, Brian, you just made me think that we moralize collectively that maybe she's, you know, crossed the line in journalistic ethics. But privately, we're going to read that shit. And that's all that matters.
Well, yeah, because attention is the currency, and the best way to get attention, and we see this in politics, we see this in the alt-right sort of manosphere or whatever, is you occasionally need to have people emerge as the heel. You know, you need to have shifting alliances. Everything has a kind of reality show feel. I'm sure, like, Alex, you're closer to like the streamer world. I mean, I try to like stay. I don't really know who Kai Cenat is.
I get down in the slums.
Yeah, this is
streamer adjacent.
Yeah, this is
the dark web.
Like I see Kai Cenat like appear, and I'm like, I have no idea who this person is, and I don't want to know who he is.
I didn't know who this person, Olivia Nuzzi, was until I did a little research on the show notes. Can you kind of bring me up to speed, because I'm very fascinated by this story.
So she is a writer, okay, and she's a political writer. She has flair, and she was basically
like a media prodigy, I would say. She started.
Yeah, I would say she is like a prodigy. I'm usually distrustful of prodigies, but that's fine. She met Scandal, basically, and that came in the form of a sexting relationship with RFK Jr.
Did it ever cross the lines from, digital to physical?
I'm unclear. You'll have to buy her new book, which is out, to find that out. She has a little, a makeover. She's got this glamorous, comeback tour that she's doing. And she also has an ex-fiance, because you need different peripheral characters. And this is a guy called Ryan Lizza. He used to write for The New Yorker. And he came out, and I really enjoyed this, I have to admit. I don't know if you read it. He came out with a newsletter, post of his own about her that was artfully done. He's been sitting on a piece of information for years from their relationship, in which at the end, he basically, in a plot twist, he basically accuses her of having an affair with Mark Sanford, the aforementioned former governor of South Carolina. He
serialized it, so there's more to come.
Yeah, no, it's tremendous. This will retail well. I would have moved the paywall up personally, but maybe that's for part 2, because this was just part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Did that answer your question, Alex? She scandalized, and she moved to Malibu.
All right.
She bought a convertible Mustang, and
it's great.
She wrote a book, that is sort of like, I don't know, how would you describe the book? What's it called?
Is it a tell-all? Is it
American Cantos? It's called, Alex, and it features kind of beat poet style narrative and a tell-all about a character called the politician, never named.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to, because again, and this reminds me of Michael Wolff, because Wolff gets a lot of grief. I think much of it is deserved.
I mean, some of it now especially, right? He's getting
he's gotten grief for a long time.
Yeah, he's gotten grief, and that's because he has main character energy. I actually really like Michael.
He says that his duplicitous ways gets him in the room.
Yeah, his goal is to get in the room, and his goal is to be also a participant / observer. And this has a long history in journalism. I think a lot of the pearl clutching that's going on is a little bit disingenuous in some ways, because this has always been a part of journalism, right? I mean, on the extreme, you have the sort of gonzo journalism of Hunter Thompson. I believe the field could use more of that. Look, Almost Famous was a great movie for a reason. Like, it's okay. Yeah. And I think, the profession is going through a lot of compression and a lot of changes. And to me, the question is, how are you going to compete within these systems that you do not control? There was this, response to the Olivia Nuzzi situation on Mediaite, and it was very well written, and I was very sympathetic to it. And it was making the point that this is the inevitable result, of quote unquote, this is what happens when an industry spends 15 years telling talented young journalists that personal brand is currency, that access is the game, that being a character in the story makes better content, and then acts shocked when someone takes that logic a few degrees too far. I'm sorry, quote unquote, the profession did not set these incentives. The profession exists, which is, by the way, an uncredentialed profession. This is not the law. Okay, it exists within a larger information system in which the incentives are set far upstream from the profession. Right?
Is that true, man? There's no code of journalistic ethics about how you treat.
Well, no, there is a code of journalistic ethics, but that's totally different than the incentives being set. This happens when an industry spends 15 years telling to talented young journalists. I would argue quite to the opposite. The profession has, and by the way, it's in their interest to keep people from not being personal brands as currents.
I agree. I mean, if anything, if you're a media brand, You don't want your young reporters to go out there and build their
No.
own, no.
You don't want to give up leverage. You want them dependent on you for health insurance, because they're going to get off their parents'
Yeah,
plan
I
at
don't
some
think
point.
that's how people think in media businesses. I don't think that's true. I think you assemble a group of people that can help you build the brand, and some of those are unnamed reporters, and many of them are named personalities. I think that's part of the mix. It's always been that way.
And then you tell them to go on social media and go to those parties.
I don't think it had the same sort of mechanics of amplification before, right? Or an ability to kind of draw the discourse away from the media brand. But, the brand of columnists inside of media brands is a long-standing strategy.
What I don't get is, and maybe you guys can tell me, like, if ever you want anything kept secret, why would you ever embroil yourself with any media personality or anybody who wants to be a writer?
It's seductive, Alex.
Really? Like,
Yeah, very,
can I insert myself into your life? I'm
Yeah.
a person who makes a living by breaking stories. That's insane. That's insane.
Well,
It's
but that's why you have to be good at it. That's
The
Brian,
profession runs.
He's
Yes, I
cozied
know.
up
This is how
to many ad tech
I mean, he's doing it with us.
I
Look at
cozied
that.
up with Troy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not go the Olivia Nuzzi route. Look, ethics matter, etc. But at the heart of the profession is something called seduce and betray, right? And it's like a watchword. It doesn't literally mean that, Olivia.
Or as Wolff would say, suck and spit.
Yeah, suck and spit. Wolf just takes it to an extreme. If you read those emails, I'm sorry, if you're scandalized by Wolff, being obsequious, like, I'm sorry, you might not be for this world. This does happen. I mean, come on. Like, let's be real.
But
you know what I've noticed, by the way, on this? Have you noticed that the New York Times has not had any of those? We talked to 40 people inside Trump and he's raging, and Jared and Ivanka are moderating forces. I wonder why that is. You know what we've also not seen? We've not seen those beet sweetener stories about Jared and Ivanka. That's because that's the quid pro quo. Like, this is just how it happens. And like, it's like, we're not supposed to like politely talk about it. But I think in this era where transparency is so important, like, this is in some ways how the sausage gets made. There are uncomfortable like alliances that get made.
But we're talking about Aura today, and I think Michael Wolff's aura has changed because he looks like he's kind of playing both sides a little bit. You know what I mean? And I think that if you're trying to build your personal brand as a writer, kind of exposing the lives of the rich and famous, but then you're exposed yourself as somebody who's like, there's something breaks at some point in the way people perceive you, right? And it's really hard to maintain like this persona.
Well, he's way past that personally, but the question is who in this story gets hurt? Who in this story is treated unfairly? The people
Which story?
Well, the story of the journalist that crosses the line. Does the audience get hurt?
I know RFK Jr. hated the profile that she wrote. I read it. I didn't think it was like, I personally was never like a major like fan necessarily. I mean, it's just preference.
I mean, the people that get hurt, Michael Wolff would suggest, are the people dumb enough to play his game. The audience wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard at some point to understand like where the truth lies in all these things, right? Does the audience really win? I think it's entertaining, and I think it becomes entertainment. But at some point, like, I'm getting pretty confused as to who to trust as a consumer of this stuff. Like,
right. Well, this is also where narrative trumps like facts, right? Like, Wolff identifies as a writer, not as like a reporter, because he's a writer, and a writer's fealty is to the integrity of the narrative. The story has to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That doesn't mean that like, you go down a checklist. This isn't the Associated Press.
Yeah, I mean, the story of the triumph of narrative's triumph is over. I thought we already did that on the podcast and decided that was the case.
Yeah, we called it.
Yeah,
We did.
we called it, and we've called many things, but we did definitely call that one. You make a list of the things we called, Brian?
I haven't, but we could do that for the newsletter because we're very early on a lot of these things.
The singularity, we called the singularity before Derek Thompson.
But I think this is one of those things. My question is like, how does the institutional media world compete in this kind of environment, right? Because it's been compressed to such a degree. Tina Brown had a great interview in the New York Times talking about this, about how, not to put words in her mouth, but basically the institutional media world has become boring. Like, it does not take risks. It doesn't have the kinds of characters that it had. That's why there's this nostalgia for the swashbuckling era of glossy magazines and the bar cart rattling around on Friday afternoons. There's not even like a Nick Denton really out there. So I'm open. I'm open to this. I'm not saying that like everything needs to be in this vein.
Hasn't this happened across media though? Like, I mean, we used to have rock stars, throw TVs out of their hotel room, like you're watching
look,
these.
Oasis is selling out stadiums for a reason.
Right. Because they're a bunch of scoundrels. We need a little bit.
Okay.
We need some of that scoundrel energy back.
Okay. Should we move on to the scoundrels of AI?
Yes, please. Have you guys tried the new Gemini?
Yeah, I have.
I haven't, no. But it's getting great reviews. This is Gemini 3. The narrative on Google has completely inverted. It is no longer hapless and playing catch up. Sergey Brin roller skated back on set, got everything up and running. And now they've got a new model release that, like, we're hearing from the AI influencer crowd has made them weep or something. The weights will come out, and I think we will then determine that Google is, again, in the lead. What's going on here?
I have my Gemini tab open inside of the Chrome browser next to your photos. Because I'm in the Riverside interface, and I just said, "Who are
did
these?"
you just call our video feed our photos?
Or no, you're sorry.
Senior moment.
All right.
Anyway,
Okay.
I asked
All right.
who it was, and Gemini called you
You're
a
not
design.
sunsetting, are you?
Gemini correctly identified the three of you. Good news, and because you know that it is a multimodal engine, and it's really good at that. And it identified you as a co-host, Alex, and a design polymath and technology executive.
Wait, did you feed it anything, or did it just?
No,
know
I just
that?
said, "Who are these guys?"
Technology.
Well, that's
executive.
fucking terrifying.
Should
And
identify him as a
you're
podcaster.
CEO of Human Computer. It said nice things about Brian too.
How does it know I'm
He's
so
a well-known
accomplished?
media expert and author of the Rebooting newsletter.
Author.
Author.
What about B2B influencer?
It didn't get that part.
Yeah, webinar maven.
I had a great one yesterday.
I'm sure. I mean, you at this stage, you're just like
No, seriously,
like,
it was great.
It's like stand up. You're just becoming so great at it.
What's the takeaway here from? Because it seems to me like I go back to like narrative, right? But the narrative has shifted from, right now OpenAI is going through its period of there's a lot of doubt. They keep stepping in it.
Yeah, I feel the doubt, Brian. I would add only this, is that there's always been an intimacy between a human being and their tools. And when you start using something like ChatGPT as part of your daily routine and how you digest stuff and write stuff and think about stuff and all of that stuff, it becomes hard to leave. And obviously memory is the killer mode here, right? And in my chats with ChatGPT, it knows that I have a podcast. It knows that we work on writing once a week. It knows the investments I'm making. It has all of that memory. So I find that extremely useful. And then I go over to Gemini, and it seems to me to be quite precise, and it's really good with imagery. It's really fast, and its responses to my queries are good, but I'm lacking that intimacy. So Alex started out the episode saying that he asked ChatGPT how to move everything over to Gemini, which I think is really smart, because there is that, like, I don't kind of want to leave ChatGPT because I got 40 projects in there, but I really like Gemini, and it's really useful. The other thing that it opened my eyes around is We think of things in certain ways because of the technology we use. Principally among those things are web pages. And I hesitate. Well, I've spent a lot of my life making web pages. I've done it with Alex. I've done it in company, like web pages and systems to make web pages. And what this new feature, I forget what it's called. I don't know, it's part of their sort of agentic or coding capabilities. You can ask Gemini, like we think of chatbots as giving us text back, right? You can ask Gemini a question. It will make an interactive website for you to answer that.
It's generative UI, it's called. So it will
generative UI. Thank you.
Right.
So, but the concept is kind of bizarre, right? It's like the answers to your responses, in the future will be all kinds of things. And now it's showing us that it's not just text, it's experiences, it's digital, multimedia digital formats. And it's pretty wild, right? Makes you think differently about the web, I think.
Sometimes I find these like AI narratives that the tech press and the media press is pushing out a little bit, like when I read a car magazine and somebody's telling me, well, BMW is fractionally better because the brakes are better than the Mercedes. And then I step into the car and I don't notice a difference. Not that I'd buy a BMW or Mercedes, but you know what I mean? Like, I think when like car enthusiasts talk about cars, 90% of the shit they say doesn't matter. And then you sit down and you just want a comfy seat and a nice stereo.
And then I get into my Altima and I'm like, I don't understand why.
Exactly. And you just want CarPlay to work, right? The thing that I think is important here is that the audience that matters is really not like people are going to see like, hey, Gemini is 20% better at this. And now ChatGPT is going to start shedding its 800 million weekly active users, right? I think that the people's behaviors are really hard to change. There's a lot of reasons why I like ChatGPT. It has a better Mac app, for example, and other stuff. But here's the audience that I think it matters for is the people that are pumping money into ChatGPT. And the narrative used to be like, they're 3 years ahead. They're 3 years ahead. They're no longer 3 years ahead. And like the 5.0 release, the 5.1 release has that stuff like has evaporated with Gemini 3. If you look at it, Claude is better at coding. Gemini is better at stuff like creative writing and with its interfaces. They're all constantly going to catch up with each other. But what this probably tells investors, or it makes the decision a little bit harder to look at where ChatGPT is going to make its trillion back. But Google's definitely got its groove back. I mean, Gemini is very good. They can start flipping switches and integrating into, a billion Android phones, billions of users on Chrome, Gmail, the workspaces, all of that stuff. I mean, that's a massive, massive amount of surface area that they have. On top of that, they're the only LLM right now that is running on non-NVIDIA chips. They run all that stuff on their own chips, which is crazy. Yeah. They've been investing in these chips for 10 years. So they're sitting pretty, but this is not the leap that's going to make it. We're not going to see these kind of like Web 2.0 moments where all of a sudden like a similar app just like takes over because it's so much better. But what this does tell me is like, wow, ChatGPT is a much harder investment today than it was like a year ago, Yeah.
You can see some of their actions through that lens. I think you're right, Alex. I think in some ways, deep down, they're worried. And the age-old methods for creating long-term engagement are clearly on their dance card, right? So the idea of adding communication to chat is important because communication is the stickiest thing that you can build as a network. Playing with ideas like Sora so you can create more immersive, expressive formats in a feed, important, right? What else have they added? Pulse was another example where if they can get into a daily kind of routine with you where they summarize your information, also very important for engagement. The sexy stuff they're doing by allowing you to have, sexy parasocial relationships with the chatbot, important. And then overarching is all of the deals they want to do so their success becomes part of the success of the ecosystem for energy, for chips, for data centers, et cetera, become another sort of hedge against the Goliath that they're up against, which is Google. And when you look at Google, they have, first and foremost, they have chips, they have servers. They're really good at cost-effective or cost-efficient delivery, but it's the monetization that they're really good at. And, they're going to be able to turn AI into attention marketplace much quicker than OpenAI is going to be able to do it. It's hard.
Well, it can't be. I mean, isn't it? I mean, they can also pour money from, they have the best economic engine ever created, as is constantly told. And so they can pour their own cash flow into buying compute and all the infrastructure necessary. Not only can they invest in this, but they can apply it to their ads business and generate even more revenue. And that kind of flywheel seems very difficult to compete with for OpenAI.
Yeah, and I look at these things personally. Like, I try OpenAI's browser and I see how long it takes me to ultimately gravitate back to Chrome. And so I think that the barriers and the moats are enormous. And personally,
but even every other browser you tried was running on Chrome.
Yeah, but that's not the interface. That's just the engine underneath. No one knows that. No one sees that. Like,
yeah, but I bet everything still defaults to Google for most of the time. I mean, I think this is definitely a sign that the market's overheated, and I think we could see ChatGPT, OpenAI evaporate because just the money faucet starts coming through. Like, I mean,
right,
I think that's the thing. Like, you had the Chinese AI stuff, and now you have Google showing, like, and you're kind of saying, like, your lead, like, on coding. I mean, Anthropic actually is beating everyone on coding and is the one that's selling the most into these codes. And now we're seeing kind of Sam Altman kind of freak out. They say, okay, we'll turn on the porn switch. All of that stuff. None of this, like Sora, none of this is $1 trillion or $100 billion business even. It's just this amount of money burn is crazy. And what this is showing is just that, like, yeah, people are maybe attached to their ChatGPT, but I think they need to start, like, figuring out how they're going to make money.
Okay. On that note, I want to bring in anonymous banker. AB, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's talk about financializing Aura. We were talking earlier about Olivia Nuzzi and this soap opera that's going on. And personally, I think it can be a good thing for the media industry, because what I see in the information space is that Aura and lore is incredibly important. And at the heart of that is leveraging this parasocial relationship that audiences end up having with creators that they just don't have with faceless institutions. And I think the question ends up being is when there's so much leverage in being a personality or an influencer and basically an emotional object, is how you end up monetizing that. I want your take on how to monetize Aura.
Sure. I mean, especially this parasocial relationship that some of these creators are able to create. I think it can only live on certain mediums. So, like audio, podcast, video, if it's like a vlog, right? So it's not just having a show on YouTube, but it's when it's like in your face. And it's almost like when the Paul brothers first started out, so much of that was like a day in their life, and then newsletters. And then you see extensions of continuing that parasocial relationship with like certain things, like the How Long Gone guys do the tour where they take their podcast on the road and the people are in the audience. So it's like events. I think where things start to get a little bit different, it's like where Mr. Beast, where you in the news, there's this thing that he's creating, or I think it's basically he's just licensing his name in the Middle East where they have this amusement park. That's not, I don't think that's actually monetizing the parasocial component. It's purely monetizing his brand, right?
It's the Forbes playbook update.
Exactly. And so because what's interesting is you can only, I think, monetize so much in the parasocial, and it's almost like, because it's like a friend, it's a fake friend. It's like, why are you giving your friend more money than you, besides like the newsletter subscription, or maybe you buy some of their merch? Like at some point you can only monetize it to a certain extent, and then you have to leverage that to move these people to try to buy things, but more on the brand that you've created and not on the relationship that you have. So I think certain people, depending on the size of their audience, can do it really well. I'm surprised that Mr. Beast hasn't leaned more into a couple areas that it would seem that would tie really well into his audience, like casual and social gaming. But you've seen him do it at scale with the Feastables, right? So everyone learned about Feastables through him, and then now it's just become a mainline product that's sold at Target and Walmart. I think it's really tough, though, to make massive businesses that are purely parasocial, because there's a limit to how much you can charge people.
Yeah.
I mean, is that true, though? I mean, didn't the Kardashians, aren't they the OG parasocial media brand?
In terms of what monetization, you're talking about like Skims or what?
I mean, There's more than Skims. There's, Skims, there's makeup, there's, each of them have their own brands. I would argue they've taken that name and, monetized it in 10 different ways.
Yeah. But the point I'm making is the reason why people are buying the makeup is they learned about it through Kim Kardashian or one of the other Kardashians, but it became a brand. It's not because of the parasocial relationship. It's more that they're a brand name, a household name that got awareness, that got free press, and it turned into something else. It's not based on the back of the parasocial relationship.
Right.
I think it's absolutely the parasocial relationship. It may not be as intimate as, something you're feeling for a YouTube creator that you invest in hugely or a newsletter writer, but we're connected to the personality. We believe they know them. We understand and dive into the social dynamics that define their lives. And that turns into commerce. That's the definition of parasocial, right? Like you feel like you're connected to the personality. I mean, what's the difference between a parasocial relationship and an age-old kind of fan-based one that rooted in celebrity?
I think the parasocial relationship feels more like tangible. Like I would put the Kardashians they're more in the celebrity bucket. I'm like making this up on the fly, but it's a podcast.
I do think like it's a definitional problem, right? There's this, is the parasocial one like the super fans who, join the Discord and kind of really feel that they have this relationship with you? Or is it much broader than that there's this new kind of relationship with celebrity that allows you, like the smartless guys, right? I think the smartless guys launched a telecom of parasocial relationships. People think they know them. Oh, that's such a yada yada thing to say, right? Like I don't remember what their names are, but I think it's just the relationship with celebrity has changed. Like Ryan Reynolds with Mint Mobile is constantly kind of playing up his parasocial relationship with you. He brings his mom on the ads. He's like talking to you like you're his friend, like you know him, right? Unless we're defining it differently.
Right. So by that sort of characterization, the difference between celebrity and parasocial is celebrity is someone that we adore, that sits out there like they're sort of untouchable, versus a parasocial relationship that we actually get much deeper and think that we understand their world, their motivations, their personality, their quirks better. We're more connected in a kind of, fake personal way. Is that the difference?
I think so. To me, like celebrity, and I think that we're going to see the pendulum swing back towards celebrity, it's unattainable.
You heard it here
right?
first.
Like you don't have constant access to like a celebrity. And that creates the scarcity. Whereas I feel like, and maybe it does go back to the Kardashians and reality TV, is giving people access 24/7 to celebrities dilutes that mystique. That takes away the aura, really.
Yeah, it's like reality TV was the connection point between celebrity and parasocial.
I do agree that I don't think that the Mr. Beast theme park is an example of monetizing parasocial relationships. I think that's like a pure brand deal because he reached that scale. I think parasocial is hard to do right. I think like Ryan Reynolds probably did it well with Mint Mobile, but as he's a very specific type of character. But I don't think that celebrity is coming back. And you can see that like today with I think Timothée Chalamet is somebody that's really good at turning marketing into parasocial relationship building.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good example.
He's everywhere. He's very genuine. Meanwhile, Brad Pitt.
Did you see the fake pitch meeting that he did?
I mean, he's just trying shit out, right? And it feels, even though it's nothing is genuine, it feels genuine. Meanwhile, you look at the kind of like the last few remaining kind of idols, right? Like the Brad Pitts of the world. I think that stuff is kind of like, dwindling. That pure kind of personality brand is dwindling. And parasocializing your personal brand seems to be kind of like an important part of what to do.
Yeah, I think Chalamet is an interesting bridge character in that like he is a new style celebrity who is very fluent in the sort of new methods of parasocial connection. I think it resurfaced, at least in my feed, this speech he gave at the SAG Awards back in February, where he earnestly said how he wants to be one of the greats, And I have this like working theory that being like genuine in your ambition is like the new sort of punk rock. It's like we're post irony now, and like being sincere is actually cool, is going to be cool again. And I think he's got an innate feel for what works in this environment. But let's move on to another topic I wanted to get AB's take on, which is John Malone. John Malone is like the last of the cable cowboys, really. Remarkable career. And I found it perfect that you had surfaced this, that he did a long interview with none other than Charlie Rose, who I guess the statute of limitations has expired on Charlie. And he's back with his own YouTube channel. Whether it's too soon or not, that's not for me to say. AB, you must admire John Malone, right?
Yeah, he's great. But I mean, everyone should, it's an hour and 40 minutes, so you can speed it up. But he goes through, and I think
it's okay. You can also watch it. It's okay, people.
Yeah. It's helpful to have someone who has so much context and has seen media through these different evolutions and can talk about what the platforms have done to media and taken a lot of the value out of it. And he makes this point that, the struggle at Warner Brothers is the debt. And it effectively means they probably just, they paid too much, and there's too much value put in the different transactions when they combine the company to make it is what it is today. And there's just not enough value that they can achieve in the near term that makes it sense to continue running the business in a steady state. And that's why they're exploring strategic alternatives for the company. And the sad thing is, like, because this is like no one really ever talks about this in detail, but streaming today, like Disney streaming platform, all these different streaming platforms, the market rewards them right now for effectively not losing money, right? And 10 years ago, if you said, oh, the market's going to reward a cable channel for just being break even, people would say you're crazy. And so as we've gone into this new world where it's harder to get consumers to sign up, it's really expensive. Cable, it used to be hard to cancel it. You would have to sign up for a year, and the customers were so much more sticky. It's like it's not a new paradigm, but in the last few years, it's like what media companies have to do to get the audience and to monetize it has completely changed. And I think John Malone has always been ahead of his time, right? And allocated capital. There's a unique thing in that John Malone's in Colorado, right? He's not a Hollywood person. He's not in New York, but he's basically efficiently allocated capital ahead of trends to either build infrastructure or to buy media companies before they got more valuable. And then there's the other part of a lot of what he's done, and he's been the master of this, is all of the transactions that he structures are meant to be tax efficient. So there's like conversations about tracking stocks and all these different things. Besides Malone and Liberty, there's very few companies that utilize some of these different methods because it's sometimes hard to explain to the market, but he's been able to do it really efficiently, where they're doing different transactions to purely save on taxes. And it saves a lot of money and it drives value to shareholders, but they'll have investments in different publicly traded entities, like in 6 different publicly traded entities with another 6 different tracking stocks purely to save on taxes.
This is the kind of spreadsheet aura we can all get behind.
Well, there's a couple other aura items here I want to add. It really is interesting, AB, to see it as eras. And if you read the book Cable Cowboys, which came out, I don't know, at least 15 years ago or 10 years.
Great book.
Yeah, really good book. You can see, the profound effect that, it started with antennas on hills to create, service coverage inside of small markets. And then they started wiring up the whole company. And that was obviously the foundation for the internet. But one change to the country, if you want to compare eras, John Malone and his cohort changed the country with wires. And that created enormous profits. And the next generation created it with network effects and the incredible businesses that were born of low content costs, hyper efficient technical platforms, and network effects that kept people connected and kept others out. There's another important era contrast that I think is really interesting and auric, is if that's the right term, Brian. Ted Turner and John Malone, that are part of that cohort, they bought tons of land. And they wanted to make the earth, they wanted to preserve the earth for, hunting and fishing and, the glories of the animal kingdom. Whereas Musk and Bezos want to leave the planet. And I think that's a nice contrast.
From a narrative perspective, if I may, it's sort of depressing, right? I mean, like we had these guys were swashbuckling, and we're left now with David Ellison. Really? I mean, some like rich kid's son who's just going to take all this AI chip money and just overwhelm the capital. Like this is a different ballgame than being a canny capital allocator in Denver. That's for sure.
There's another point too, Brian, is that John Malone wanted desperately to own CNN, and Ted Turner was his buddy, and he would have loved to get CNN into the Liberty universe, but Ted wouldn't do it because of politics. Ted didn't like John's politics. Ted was a liberal married to Jane Fonda, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hanoi Jane. I mean, come on.
John Malone is a libertarian with a kind of scientist's mind.
Yeah, well, he's rebranding as an autist too. I found out during that interview. It's the hip thing to do. Should we get on to good product? Because I know Alex has a hard stop.
Usually do.
Okay.
Well, I can start good product with a personal essay about a product that annoys me, and then I can get into good product. You had asked me, Brian, to look at why I was so annoyed by Apple News.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I thought Apple News maybe shows us why we should love the web and why we'll miss it. But we all like it, that it's a sort of clean environment and a kind of interface on media that doesn't, commit extreme acts of monetization violence that you find elsewhere on the web. But my browser is my operating system. That's where I spend my time. And it's connected by search and my communication tools and, shopping stuff and service applications and increasingly AI. And Apple News asked me to abandon that in exchange for something less chaotic, admittedly. But it asked me to abandon that and go to their interface, which is slow and clumsy and bad and disconnected. And that annoys me. And the newsletter boom already asked me to spread my news attention to my inbox, right? And I don't want another surface. So I got the web, I got apps, I got my inbox, and now I got to go to Apple News. So that's the first, grievance. The second one is the curation on Apple News confounds me because it weaves together this outdated like issues-based organization construct that came from the magazine days. Like I'm going to read an issue of Fortune magazine. Stop it. I'm never going to do that. And then these fake and ineffective for you shitty personalization chunks, they don't know what I like. They're really bad at that, right? And then they mingle in top stories and these sort of arrogance of Apple-powered editor picks. I want someone from like the Infinite Loop giving me editor's picks. No, I don't. They don't know what they're doing. And then they cross, so they've got like all these different paradigms. They got issues, they got for you, they have news, they have editor's picks, and then they have topics like education and health. You should be shot if you group content by education, health, or technology. That's not how it works anymore, right? And then my next beef is the game section. I like that you actually made a game section because I like the games, but your crossword puzzles are dumb. And it really shows you that like games lack that sort of cultural craft that real games makers, the people at the New York Times make to make their games fun. Your games are dumb games. And so the editorial layer on games is actually really important. Finally, and probably most egregious, is it's meant to be a bundle that includes things like the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg. The problem is they neuter the Wall Street Journal, so they give you a tiny bit of it. And then Bloomberg, like they constantly show, you see Bloomberg links, but all of them are paywalled on Apple News. So it's kind of this bait and switch. I'm not getting Bloomberg. Now I get it. It's like $10 a month. You can't fit all of that into $10 a month. And Bloomberg has widely said no. That you're not going to be the substitute for a real, genuine, first-person Bloomberg subscription. But it just means that there's a lot of dead ends in the thing. So to me, it feels a little like AOL after the web showed us why open is better. And I'd make more use of it because it's a cheap bundle of stuff that I sometimes look at. If it was more connected to my media world, rant over.
So I want to get to Alex on this, but I also want to just point out a depressing fact. All of what you say, I agree with. Also, Apple News is unbelievably successful. It has about 125 million people monthly using it across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia alone. It has added users every year. One estimate put it at reaching 200 million. We'll see. And this is another example of how distribution is everything. It sort of reminds me of how Apple made iTunes like terrible for so long and it didn't really matter. Same thing with Apple Podcasts. It had complete control of podcasting, and yet the Apple Podcast software sucked. So I don't know.
I think Alex likes Apple News. Isn't that? Do you like Apple?
Do you? Come on. Anytime I see one of those links, I get depressed because I'm like, God, it's going to open up something.
100% agree with you, Troy. I think you hit the nail on the head. It slowly crept up on me, and it, my wife asked me if we were getting the New Yorker with the Apple News, and I said I think so, and then I had to look at some magazine interface, but then we couldn't find the article. For some reason, I get fed like UK car magazine content for like voxels. Like I can. It's a terrible product, and Apple. You're right. Apple does that. The power of owning the operating system, right? Which is why it's going to be so hard. We were talking about ChatGPT before. It's going to be so hard to break into that space for others, especially now that it looks like Apple's going to do an AI deal with Google, right? They're going to get paid $1 billion to just use Google's model and be done with it, which is peanuts. But yeah, I agree. I think it's actually it's a really bad interface. It works fine for most people because they just open the news and they just scan through it. And I find myself doing that because it's just there. But it's actually a really bad news product.
And it's funny. I don't like the juxtapositions. I don't like USA Today next to something more interesting or credible.
Shots fired at USA Today.
Yeah.
I have another one, guys. But everybody wants to own a league, and AB can comment on this. The ultimate is not having to deal with the league if you're a rights owner. And there's a new one coming up, AB, and I think we should look into it and maybe try to get a position on it. And I got this, of all places, from 60 Minutes. And it's the ultimate statement of manhood. It's chessboxing. Did you see this? You're familiar with this? It's an emerging league that's really designed to showcase, brains and brawn. It's called chessboxing. It's 11 rounds, alternating between 6 rounds of chess and 5 rounds of boxing. They're 3 minutes each. The chess is speed chess. If someone knocks you out in the ring, like these are big Russian guys, like they'll knock you out, then you're done. But if you win chess and you survive getting the shit beaten out of you in the ring because you're like some nerdy chess master, you win.
This is super Slavic. I love it.
It's so good. And nobody can beat the Russians, Brian. And the Americans have kind of tried to put their best foot forward, and they did win a really important match recently.
Are they taking the gloves off in between the round? How does it work?
You know what they do? I think they take the gloves off, and there's a really quick 1-minute transition. They put headphones on and they sit at a ringside chess table and with the clocks and all that and play chess. It's a great idea.
I mean, I think it's one of those, maybe that's for now the chess that AI can't beat us at, because you just punched it. Just punch the computer. I'd love to watch that. Do the moves get like worse and worse as time goes on and kind of the brain damage settles in?
Yeah. No, but Alex, the people that they find to do this are like, they'll recruit, like they recruited this guy from Philly, I think, that's like this 250-pound chess master. And he was like a tank and like a fat guy. And they put him into like serious training so that he could survive getting the shit beaten out of him by this Russian boxer. But he could crush him at chess.
That's amazing. I mean, that's how you reinvigorate Rocky, the franchise.
One interesting insight that I don't know where you're watching this stuff, Troy, but I was talking to someone with one of these YouTube roll-ups this week, and he mentioned that the amount of people with YouTube now on their TVs is allowing them to extend the content window much further than they ever thought they could. So normally long-form content on YouTube was like 20 minutes. But because now people actually, not just YouTube TV where they're watching cable channels, but because people have YouTube on their TVs, they can extend like just a normal YouTube channel's content to 40 plus minutes, and the watch, like, people are not dropping off. So I think that's something interesting, is you're going to see the dynamisms of the world, or what the Nick Carlson one that does the business news, like being able to do much longer videos and still have people watch them, which I think is kind of fun. And
yeah, I like his stuff. He's like Discovery Channel 2.0. He does he does good stuff. But you know, one of the interesting things to watch there, AB, is going to be, what does YouTube decide to roll into the YouTube app? So for example, I don't care. I have YouTube TV. I like it because I can watch it anywhere. But the only reason I get it is for Sunday Ticket. And they sell me Sunday Ticket, and I watch football games there. I don't know why else I pay $80 a month or whatever it is. But I think now I can get my Sunday Ticket programming through my YouTube app. And ultimately, I can buy it there, and I won't need YouTube TV.
Yeah. By the way, just a quick note on chessboxing. It's been around since 2003. And of course,
it came out of a graphic novel that this French woman
it was
wrote.
born in Berlin, which I think is very fitting. And it was organized by a Dutch performance artist.
Yeah. All right.
Good ideas can come from anywhere.
That's it for this episode of People vs. Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
All right, let's wrap it up. Let's leave it there. Good episode. Thanks for bringing the heat. We'll be back next week.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.